After 7.5 years of actually working on the stone, plus 5 more just showing it, we were running out of options and ideas. Surely there was someone or place that could see the value in the stone. It called on every bit of our imagination to think this through and step way outside of the box. Though Lawrence and I had done several large gemstones together, this was a new frontier for both of us. During our 6-month sabbatical, Lawrence, myself, Suni, and Sharon sat around trying to come up with an alternative. It was during one of our brainstorms that we came upon the brilliant idea to build a steel sculpture to bring the 3 pieces back together in a single sculpture. And then the ultimate goal, to hang it from a ceiling, was just the creative impetus we needed to get back on it. To create a single sculpture from this one single crystal and then hang it like a giant gemstone pendant was so outside the box of what we had ever done previously. It was just a brilliant concept that would reinvigorate Lawrence and me to recommence the work and move forward. When we started Bahia, we initially thought it would take around 18 months. Ultimately, it ended up taking us 5 years in cutting, carving, and polishing, and then another 2.5 years to work on a steel frame with the assistance of the late Pepe Ozan, along with the engineering to hang the sculpture from a ceiling. After 7.5 years of ups and downs of cutting the stone and fabricating the steel frame, the story does not end here. Of course, our final goal was to sell the stone for the partnership group. This was easier said than done. Lawrence and I thought the world would just be running to our door wanting this rare, unique stone. We had our good friends and gemstone mineralogy experts appraise the value of the stone. They had written several articles in the lapidary journal for me and Lawrence about various works of gem art we had done and had years of experience in the industry. They also spent years in Adar Oberstein and knew other major gem works they could compare it to. The difficulty in placing the value on a stone like this is nothing quite like this existed before. It was so outside the box to give it a fair value when there was nothing to compare it to at the time. They gave it a range in value from $2 to $4 million in their evaluation. With appraisal in hand, Lawrence and I then spent the next 5 years exhibiting it, transporting it back and forth across the United States for it to be seen and admired. We did everything we could for it to be seen and marveled at. We really wanted it to end up in a public place where individuals could come and see it and enjoy it for generations to come. We really did not want it to end up in some private collection where the world at large could not enjoy such a rare gemstone. Towards the end of our long journey in cutting the stone and developing the frame to hang it, the late Vince Manson, head of strategic development for the Gemological Institute of America, heard about Bahia and came up to my studio in North Carolina to see the stone. Vince was in charge of the building and development of their new campus in San Diego County and was dreaming of a magnificent piece like Bahia to be present in what he termed the Gem Tower. The Gem Tower is a tall 30-foot alcove in the entrance to the main campus building. This was exactly the type of place Vince was dreaming to be on permanent display in this alcove. The tower faces exactly due east on the campus and has a long, narrow window that went from the ground all the way up to the ceiling of this tower that lets morning light shine through. It started out being shown at the new international campus of the Gemological Institute of America in California. We were hoping the school would see its value and want it for their campus. After 1 year exhibiting it, the school was showing no real interest at the time in acquiring it, so we then transported Bahia across to the U.S. to the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There, it remained on exhibition for 2 years as a very popular exhibit. With still no real interest in anyone or any institution wanting to purchase it, we then transported it back across the U.S. to the Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History. Their Bahia was on exhibit for 2 years, but still no interest in purchasing it. Through my good friends, we developed a plan to return Bahia back to GIA for another exhibition, hoping this time the powers that be would see the value of having the stone in their museum collection permanently. Lawrence and I really felt that this was the ideal place for Bahia to be for generations to come to enjoy its rarity and beauty. More than just the money, we were hoping to realize after such a long time working on Bahia, both he and I really wanted the public to be able to have access to enjoy and marvel at its rarity. So, we moved Bahia from the LA County Natural History of Museum back to the GIA, where it all started, and hung it for the second time in the tower. 6 months go by and still the Board of Governors could not commit to acquiring Bahia. Our Brazilian partners are now getting anxious for a sale. We all had a lot invested, both time and money, and by this point over 12 years had lapsed since we actually started cutting Bahia, including 5 years exhibiting it at 3 major U.S. museums. Still, there seemed to be very little interest. We were then offered by a major U.S. auction house to have Bahia be the cover piece of their catalog for the next major auction that they were having. This was a major breakthrough for us. With only 48 hours to sign the contract, I call up the president of the GIA, who years earlier was my colored gemstone instructor. We remained friends and stayed in contact over the 18 years. I told him about our predicament and that if the GIA was to do anything at this point, they had 48 hours. Otherwise, we were going to take down the exhibition and move Bahia to the auction house. Though my Bahia partners and I thought we could